The sea was calm that morning, its silver-blue surface rippling gently beneath the sun. Michelle leaned against the railing, eyes closed, letting the wind tangle her hair. Her husband, Daniel, stood at the helm, calm, confident, and entirely in his element. Sailing had always been his escape, and she loved seeing him that way, steady, smiling, at peace. But peace, as the ocean often reminds us, is fleeting. Hours later, as they drifted farther from the coast, the wind began to shift. What had once been a gentle breeze turned restless, whipping through the sails with a low, ominous moan. The laughter between them faded into uneasy silence. Michelle frowned. "The waves are picking up," she said, gripping the railing. Daniel just smiled. "Don't worry, the sea's just stretching her arms." Yet moments later, a sharp rhythmic drip reached Michelle's ears. Then another. She looked down. A thin stream of water trickled in through a seam near the hull. "Daniel!" she shouted. "We've got a leak!" He was beside her in an instant, crouching to inspect the damage. The color drained slightly from his face, but his voice stayed calm. "It's minor. I can fix it." Before she could respond, he darted below deck. "Wait, Daniel!" she called after him, panic rising. "We need to abandon ship." But he didn't answer. The wind howled louder now, rocking the boat. Michelle grabbed a bucket and began bailing water as fast as she could, her heart pounding in rhythm with the waves. Come on, she muttered, breath quickening. Every scoop felt useless against the sea's relentless advance. Then Daniel's voice echoed faintly from below. "Everything's fine, I just need a few more minutes." Minutes? She wanted to scream. They didn't have minutes. The leak was spreading, and her hands burned from scooping icy water. She fumbled for the radio. Static hissed back at her, no signal. "Help!" she shouted anyway, into the void. Just when her hope began to waver, a voice carried across the wind. "Hey, you okay out there?" She turned to see a nearby boat approaching, its crew waving frantically. The man at the front, later she'd learn his name was Greg, looked at her with sharp concern. "We're taking on water," she yelled, cupping her hands around her mouth. Greg's crew acted quickly, tossing a line across the gap between their vessels. Michelle tied it shakily, her fingers trembling. The waves were rising, churning white foam between them. "Where's your husband?" Greg shouted. "Below deck! He won't leave!" Greg's face tightened. "Then we'll get him out." Before she could reply, Daniel climbed back up, soaked, pale, but still composed. "We're not abandoning the ship," he said firmly. Michelle stared at him in disbelief. "Are you insane? We're sinking." "There's something I need to save," he said quietly. Her heart sank. What could possibly be worth more than our lives? He didn't answer, just turned and disappeared below again. Rain began to fall, the sea roared. Greg leapt aboard their boat, his eyes locking with Michelle's. "We have to go now," he urged. "You can't stay out here much longer." But she couldn't bring herself to move. The thought of leaving Daniel alone down there, it felt like betrayal. Torn between love and survival, she hesitated, gripping the slick railing. Lightning flashed across the horizon, and for a brief second, the world was all light and noise. "Michelle," Greg shouted. "It's now or never." She looked toward the dark opening of the cabin, water already flooding its steps. The storm had arrived and her husband was still below deck, and somewhere deep inside the ship, he was hiding something. The storm unleashed its fury without warning. Waves slammed against the hull, spraying icy water into Michelle's face as thunder rolled like cannon fire overhead. She could barely see Greg's boat through the curtain of rain. He shouted something, but the wind swallowed his words. "Daniel!" she screamed, peering down the staircase that led below deck. "Please, we have to go." No answer, only the groaning of wood and the hiss of water rushing in. Then, faintly, his voice muffled, determined. "Just one more minute." Michelle's heart twisted. She grabbed a rope, ready to risk it. "If he won't come up, I'm going down," she told Greg. Greg's eyes widened. "Don't be crazy. You'll drown in there." But she didn't listen. Clutching the railing, she descended into the dark cabin. The air was heavy with seawater and panic. Flashlight beams cut through the gloom as she called again, voice trembling. "Daniel, where are you?" At the far end of the cabin, she saw him kneeling in waist-deep water, fumbling with something metallic under the bench. "What are you doing?" she cried. He turned, soaked and shaking, clutching a small chest the size of a toolbox. "I've got it," he whispered. Michelle stared, disbelief and fear colliding. "That? You're risking our lives for a box?" Before he could respond, a massive wave struck the hull, throwing both of them against the wall. The cabin lights flickered, then died completely. Water surged up to their chests. Greg's voice echoed from above, desperate now. "They're here! The Coast Guard's here! Get out!" Michelle lunged toward Daniel, grabbing his arm. "Please, we can't stay!" "Whatever that is, it's not worth dying for." But his grip on the chest was iron. "It belonged to my grandfather," he said through clenched teeth. "He built this boat. That's why I couldn't leave it." She froze. The realization hit her like another wave. This wasn't greed, it was legacy, memory, a promise. Still, there was no time. The cabin door burst open as seawater poured in, flooding their last pocket of air. Michelle made the choice for both of them. She yanked Daniel upward, forcing him to climb. Together, they stumbled onto the deck, gasping as lightning tore open the sky. Greg reached for her hand first, pulling her towards safety. "Come on!" Daniel hesitated, looking back at the sinking boat one final time. The water swallowed it slowly, dragging the past beneath the waves. but he held the chest tightly, refusing to let it go. When the Coast Guard spotlight found them, everything turned blinding white. Strong arms lifted them aboard, wrapping them in blankets as the wind howled on. Michelle turned to Daniel, his knuckles white around the chest. "What was inside?" she asked softly. He opened it just enough for her to see. Inside lay a faded photograph, an old compass, and a small engraved plaque, "For the one who never let go." Tears welled in Michelle's eyes. The weight of the storm seemed to fade, replaced by something deeper, quiet understanding. "I thought you were choosing the boat over us," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "I was saving where we came from, so we'd never forget where we belong." Greg smiled faintly, steering them back toward shore as dawn broke across the horizon. The waves had calmed, and sunlight shimmered on the water like molten gold. The sea had taken their vessel, but given them something far greater in return. A story of love, legacy, and the will to hold on when everything else sinks away.